I was 18 when I met him, and he became my best friend. And then, yeah, everything changed then. He then said that he had this big debt and that needed to be paid off, and I had to help him pay that off, so I would have to go and work for him. So he found me a place to work where he had before a petrol station, to go and work on the road. I couldn't believe it could happen. I felt sick. To think how someone could make you feel so bad and so scared to do anything. I want people to know that this really does happen and they should really help.
You give me money and you make me smile. This is Maureen Forte of In the Know with Mo, and I am coming to you with a story on human trafficking. It's not from way long time ago, it's about now. Your next door neighbor at your doorstep. And I want to welcome my guest, Mary Bonnet. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Mo.
We're going to be talking about human trafficking, what it is. And before we start, I'd like for you to tell our viewing audience what human trafficking is.
Human trafficking, there's two types. One is labor and one is sexual trafficking. And it's really holding people against their will, coercing them into doing your bidding for either work for free or sex for free, and holding you as a slave, exactly what you said, as a modern-day slave.
Modern-day slavery. And some years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I met you, and you were my guest on In the Know with Mo on WCFJ, and we talked about human trafficking. 3 years ago, I was investigating young boys ages 10 to 14 in the South Shore area being used for prostitution, dressed as girls. But tell us about your program and what you're doing and the upcoming program that you have.
Oh, thank you. I'm with Her Story Theater, and our mission is to shine bright lights in dark places on women and children in need of social justice and community support. So since around 2012, we've been focusing on human trafficking, but specifically domestic sex trafficking. And that is, the focus is on young children between the ages of 12 and the average age actually is 12 years old for a trafficked victim.
And the average age being 12, this is incorporating young girls and young boys?
Yes, it's about 94% are girls that are trafficked and 6% are boys. Used to be 4% boys, and that has increased by 2% over this time period.
And it's so amazing when you hear the word human trafficking, people think, oh, Cambodia, the third world countries where it's still prevalent, the human trafficking is still existing. But now we're here in the United States, and it's at our front door. It's on our doorstep. It's in the days before it was the North Shore area. Why was it always focusing on the North Shore area?
Well, it's twofold.
Okay.
A lot of times the buyers are from a wealthier area, and those that have money can afford to buy and purchase people. And then the people that were being bought were in from areas that maybe that were in disarray, some kind of chaos, which is a tendency of where the traffickers go to recruit their victims. So you have the supply side and you have the demand side, and the demand side tended to be more on that north side.
And so now we have human trafficking has nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with race, nothing to do with social economics. I mean, black, white, Chinese, Asian, rich, poor, two-parent household, single-parent household, good morals, in church, all type of activities. It doesn't matter. My question is, how are these young people drafted into this lifestyle, the human trafficking? How are they caught up into this?
Sure. Well, now it's very easy to be caught up into it because we have the internet.
Yes.
And we have chat rooms and we have cell phones. And those two things have changed the face of trafficking and allowed it to explode, become epidemic across the world and certainly in the United States. It's rural, it's suburban, and it's urban, and it's in every pocket across this nation. And those are the two components, the internet and the cell phone, that have allowed children, as in one of my plays called Shadow Town, the trafficker says, I'm only a click away, sincerely your trafficker. And that's exactly it. They're just a click
That's
away.
right.
And so any child is vulnerable. They profile them. They know exactly the questions to ask. They know exactly how to manipulate. They're professionals at what they do. There's a lot of money involved, and they're there for the money because money makes them smile.
Yes,
Yeah,
money make them smile.
it does make them smile.
Yes, yes. You give me money when you're in need,
Yeah.
and money makes them smile because this generation, and it's been going on for years, but it seems like this younger generation, the generation now, I don't even want to call them the millennials because they're younger than the millennials. They're looking for something quick, fancy, and flashy. That's what they're looking for. So when you have, for instance, as you know, I just recently had the loss of a family member due to human trafficking, and reading on the social media all kind of stories, all kind of pictures, all kind of everything. But the truth being, this child, my cousin, was involved in everything. But there was still a missing gap. There's always a missing gap. Very active in church, volunteering and everything, an outstanding athlete in every source of the way, but there was still a missing gap. And I know you can't be with your children 24/7, but there's something wrong. And my neighbor, we just located her daughter on a certain page, and it turned out two-parent household. Mother takes her to school. Mother picks her up, except for the days that she's after school and after school programs. Then she meets her outside in front of the school. So here's the questions parents have to be more aware of. Even though they're in after school, the parents have to go and check in. So many parents are asking, well, how are they doing all this? And we're on top of them. So there are a lot of ways. What are some of the ways and the children can be forced into this human trafficking?
There's a lot of apps out there that they have access to. There's Instagram. There's all those chat rooms. Parents, and they're very slick about hiding that from adults. They have their own world. If they're with friends who are supporting that, we come from a society that really sexualizes our children. So a lot of this, if they're sexting, if they're doing this or that, that's supported and condoned really often. And so kids come to think of themselves in that manner.
Right.
So when that door opens up for a boyfriend to step in, or it can be recruited in the schools, it's going on there. There's lots of ways to get to that child.
Yes.
If they are usually that age group, it goes through a lot of angst, a lot of emotional insecurities. So they're vulnerable because of that. They're just blossoming, coming into their own as far as a young woman or a young man. And those traffickers hone in on that. If there's any kind of disturbance or disconnect in the home where that child feels that, and it may not be a reality, but the child feels it is, where they're not getting enough attention, they'll turn to somebody who will give them attention, and that trafficker's right there to do it.
Right, and some of you parents need to realize the constant changing of transferring your child from one school to another. The child has been suspended or expelled from several schools, and now you want to address the issue. Is it the school's problem or is it your problem? Who do you address? So this is something you have to look into, because when kids are transferred from school to school, that's a key that someone is watching their transfer activities. And also when parents, when you drop your kids off at the mall and tell them, I'm going to pick you up in 3 hours, it only takes so many minutes for this activity to...
I have a great mall story.
Yeah.
And this happened on the North Shore. So there was a young man who said he was from Wisconsin, and he targeted one of the girls who's sitting in the mall that came on a regular basis, and he decided that he would become her boyfriend, and he did. And so he went to even visit her family, and then one day he invited her up to Madison, and her parents thought he was a very nice boy and convinced it so that she could take a day trip up to Madison. He was a trafficker. He was a pimp. And he was a wingman. He was hired by a pimp. He was a young guy to recruit. And so that girl disappeared. And that was that. So they're very clever in what they do. Malls, schools, group homes, any of that. Vulnerable parties where there's any kind of drugs or alcohol going on. And, young people like to act grown up and exposed to that. if you are transferred, kids that are isolated, don't have friends, they're another target, they're profiled. That's a perfect target. Any runaways are usually a trafficker's on them in about 48 hours.
And also libraries.
Libraries is another place.
Libraries, I'm mentioning libraries because in all these libraries, there are isolated areas of the libraries that no one goes into. Right. And in most cases, probably the history library section or the science library section. But there are isolated areas in these libraries that young men and young women meet and greet in these libraries, and where sexual behaviors are performed in the libraries, and some of them have been caught on tape. So we have seen some of this on videotape in some of the libraries here in the Chicagoland area.
The key, I think, is education for young people to understand that they're so vulnerable to these traffickers that are out there. Gangs have gotten heavily involved as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of money in there that can use a person over and over again as opposed to a drug where they can only use once. They've come upon that as a nice business for them, a lucrative business for them.
Also tattoos. We look at and glamorize tattoos, but tattoos are another means of identification.
Yes, they are.
And so some of the young ladies will have tattoos with a symbol, which is the symbol of the pimp in most cases. Yes. And I've noticed last week, a couple of young ladies I was talking with, they had their inner lip tattooed, because now maybe the mom says no tattoos on this body, but the inner lip has a tattoo on there. So there's so much education. And then we said, well, maybe the schools need to teach us. Maybe we need to get more parents involved with the family instead of trying to be a friend and be more of a parent.
All of the above.
All of the above.
So we're doing Money Make 'em Smile, which is coming up. It opens February 11th at Greenhouse Theater, which is on Lincoln Avenue. And we run that for about a month, and it's for 7th through 12th graders. And it has all those things in it about the tattoos, all the signs that are there, all the vulnerabilities that these kids go through. And so our hope is that we will raise awareness with the students and the educators to put them because they're on the front line.
Right.
So if they see those signs, they're aware of those signs, they can report it. That student can be taken in, that student can be rescued. We've had kids come before and see our former shows. Same thing happened where the child got a different point of view now and realized that girl was being trafficked and reported it. FBI came in and rescued 2 girls off that street that were being trafficked. So we know it can be done. We know that education and awareness work. And so that's what we're trying to do. We have a curriculum that's attached to it. We have a study guide. We have a workshop that goes with it. It's free. All of it's free. If you're a Chicago public school teacher, you get 6 CPDUs free. You get lunch free. Oh. It's quite a deal. And so Chicago Teachers Union is our partner. But anybody is welcome to come to this. They can join the workshop, even if they're not a Chicago public school. They wouldn't get the credits, but they would get the training, and they would get the curriculum. So we're really hoping this will make some kind of difference. It's a beautiful little theater, seats up to about 190 people. And so we'd like to get it filled, and we hope and are inviting people to come see the show.
So for those that are viewing this and that are interested in Money Make 'em Smile, because that's the title of it, how do they get in contact with you?
They go to herstorytheater.org, and that's theater with a ER.
Okay.
Yeah, herstorytheater.org.
Okay, and that's February 11th through...
It opens and it goes through March 10th.
Okay. So teachers and parents and organizations, if you're listening, it's time to wake up, to educate, to elevate your mind and the minds of our young people. This is an excellent time for you to come and witness and participate in a program. Teachers, you know that state certification is about to expire and you need to renew it. 6 CPDUs will help you with those 20 CPDUs that you need. And so far, I have one school on board, which is one of the largest elementary schools in the state of Illinois. And because the area where this school is coming from is a high population of sex trafficking. And I think it's because so many of the residents in this area are illegal citizens. They're trafficked over here, and now they're prostituted out, and they're young girls, and they have the look of the exotic, what they're looking for, what the pimps and the traffickers. When we talk about human trafficking, and you have the pimp that's pimping the girls, but you have a lady, and I think she's called what, the gorilla?
The bottom girl.
The bottom girl. And so they're the middle people. The person really making the money is the higher up, the trafficker. That's who we really want to get.
Well, a pimp and trafficker are synonymous.
Okay.
The bottom girl is not, but she recruits.
Okay.
So she's under that pimp or that trafficker. And then they have the wingmen. They have like different types of pimps. They'll have a Romeo pimp or the gorilla pimp, which is a very violent person.
Yeah.
The Romeo pimp's more romantic, and the recruiter, and oftentimes they're hired by the head pimp. They create families. They're called stables, and they have wifeys or wifey-in-laws. They call each other sisters. It's for those who haven't had a family. It feels pretty good to be part of something, and so the traffickers are aware of that as well. Chicago is the third largest hub in the nation. We have a real issue. We have 2 airports. So there's a lot of in and out.
Yes.
A lot of in and out. These girls are transferred about as well. But if there's a massage parlor, or there is a strip club, or there is an escort service in your neighborhood, you can bet trafficking is going on. If there's a next door neighbor where you see a lot of men going out in and out at any hour, you can bet trafficking might be going on. So those are some telltale signs that people can be aware of. But it is about parents. It is about coming together as a community and protecting our children from something that is absolutely hideous. These kids are abused physically, emotionally, spiritually, and shattered pretty much for the rest of their life.
And now the Super Bowl is upon us.
It is.
The Super Bowl is the biggest event ever. And so now organizations are preparing to supply the needs of these men at the Super Bowl.
They are.
So what can be done to stop this? I mean, they're all in the hotels. They're already registering. They already have their hotel rooms.
Well, really it's laws and officials and the law enforcement enforcing those laws. If the laws are in place and we've got enough law enforcement people out there enforcing the laws, then it can bring a stop to it. If people will advocate and protest, if they know what's going on, if they see the signs in the hotel, if they make that hotel accountable. There are a group of nuns that went in there making hotels accountable, putting soap, and also they have little soap that has signs on it and phone numbers and things, different ways for you to report in what's going on. If that child was trafficked, she could call that, use that soap and the phone number. They also they have an app where you can go into a hotel, take the picture of that hotel, and it will go to this app where the police will identify where that hotel is, so that they see it online, then they can know where to track it. And so we can help that way even, which is unusual.
I'm not too impressed with some of the police. Here lately in the news, recently in fact, there were police, 1 or 2 police officers that were charged with human trafficking themselves. So who do you trust? Officer friendly is now too friendly. And so what do you do? And then I'm just really shocked here in the city of Chicago that our elected officials are not standing out or speaking out and standing up on this issue on human trafficking. It's not their concern until it hits home. I started off with this some years ago and stopped. But when that violence hits your doorstep, I mean, it makes you sad to the core, because something has to be done. But our elected officials are not doing enough. So it's taking people like yourself and myself and some others to address these issues. I'm going to stop right here. Welcome back. This is Maureen Forte. I'm back on this human trafficking, sex trafficking, the slavery, and I'm welcoming my guest, Mary Bonnet, who is just fantastic with the work that she's doing on educating. And we were talking about her upcoming play for students in the Chicago Public Schools, CPS, any school, if you are interested. Money Make 'em Smile, which is being presented February 11th through March 10th at the Green Lighthouse Theater. Greenhouse Theater. And we'll be giving you more information. And it's also a training program for teachers where you can get 6 CPDUs and a curriculum guide on it. Because it's going to take the village, and we are the village. There's so much violence and hatred here in the city of Chicago. Across the nation, because human trafficking is just not Chicago, it's nationwide. It's not the third world countries. It's here in Chicago. It's at our doorstep. It's your next door neighbor. It may be in my house. It may be in yours. So we want to educate you on human trafficking and what we as a village can do to save lives. So, Mary, I just want to say my little cousin, this is, her name was Desiree Robinson. She was only 16, due to graduate in June. Very active in all kinds of activities. Her funeral was a couple of weeks ago. There were 2,000 youth, 2,000 people at the funeral. And it turns out her body was so badly beaten and cut that the funeral home that did the service did an excellent job. She was beautiful, but it was a sad occasion. Her face had to be made up dark because she was so badly bruised and blackened. And her hands, they were also colored, but not as dark as her face. But when you look at her body, you can see the cuts and the stab wounds in her hands. And where her neck had been slit, they had to put a scarf around there. For me, as a parent, when I saw the body, all I could think of was Emmett Till and the pain and the sorrow that Emmett Till's mom had gone through. And this would have been my decision if this was my child, not to beautify for the world, but to let the world see the dangers and the hate that's in our world. I would have just let her body lay there for the world to see the brutality that a monster had done to this young child. Not even 110 pounds, and the person that did this was over 280 pounds. So you're taking advantage, and for what reason? What type of man wants a young girl like that? Is he insufficient in his genitalia area? He has low self-esteem. What is the real reason?
Desiree she was trafficked.
Yes.
And she was sold on Backpage.
Mm-hmm.
And then this man bought her. And then he decided that he wasn't getting what he wanted and then destroyed her in a very brutal fashion. This is not uncommon. I'm so very sorry to say.
Yeah.
And it's a highly violent world that these little girls walk into, both from the pimp/trafficker and from the buyers.
And
buyers come in all different sizes and shapes.
Yes.
All different reasons. I've interviewed a lot of women who are in the business and asked them, why do they buy? Why do these men buy? One woman said because they have a hole in their soul that they keep trying to fill up, and she says, we're never going to fill it up, no matter how many times they come back. They have all different kinds of issues. It might be insecurities. It might be a fear of rejection. It might be they don't know how to have intimacy, or they want to buy intimacy. There may be perversity. There may be sadism, like this. And this man seemed to me to be a sadist. But they tend to focus in on young girls that they can control. They like that. They like a more youthful side. And when these girls get in those positions, they actually do not know what to do, and many times they are drugged. The trafficker will drug them to keep control of them, and they walk in and they're high and they're disorientated as to where they are. They're very petite, and they're with a very large person who has complete physical control.
Right.
This man didn't sound like he was mentally very healthy to begin with, and certainly was sadistic in his approach. And oftentimes there's a sense that these lives don't matter, these very young lives don't matter, and that these girls put themselves in harm's way to begin with, but in fact they've been pulled into harm's way, are kept in harm's way, and have no choice about getting out of harm.
It's a sad situation. And
it's tragic.
It's very tragic, and I'm just praying to the good God above that they do not allow this perpetrator to get off with a mental disability, playing the insane and crazy role, because
he was cognizant of what he was doing.
Yes. When he stood before the court and said the things that he did to her with a smirk on his face, that was a problem. I said that he's not going to try to claim insanity, because when you slit a person's throat like you're cutting a fish, there's a problem. When you beat them and stab them till nothing else could happen, thanks to the, as you said previously, the technology, they now have Find My Phone app. And so because of that Find My Phone app on the phone, and the people that were with her were able to go back to where she was found and ask for to look into the garage. So those that are viewing and have made various comments, there were just so many nasty comments on her social page, and on a lot of blaming the victim, and not realizing those social medias like Backpage.com, which have recently been shut down, part of it, not the total page, but those pages like that, people are paying to and soliciting these young girls. So when you go on those pages, you see young girls, boys, and transgender clients also on those pages.
That's why they go there. The average lifespan of a child who enters the life, as they call it, is about 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, and their way of getting out is usually dying at the hands of the trafficker or the John. Drugs, alcohol, insanity. Sometimes they're rescued, which is what we're looking for, and then prison.
Now, the play that you're doing, Money Make 'Em Smile, some of the participants, some of the writers are 7th and 8th graders?
No. It's I wrote it,
okay,
but it's targeted to 7th through 12th grades. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's specifically written. I did a lot of interviews with young people across the Chicagoland area, including the burbs and the South and North burbs.
Okay.
And got a lot of input on where they were coming from and what's going on in the schools, and that was very interesting exploration to see what kind of state they were in, and boy and girl relationships, because it does deal with gender issues as well, and not real healthy out there.
No, it's not healthy at all. And then we also need to I have been working on trying to develop a dictionary, because there's so many new acronyms and terminologies out here.
It changes all the time.
It changes all the time, so it's hard to keep up.
I'm a little dated online.
So we have to educate the parents, because there's so much, and every day something is changing. That's why these new phones are coming out.
Those apps are something to really plug into. There's an app now that's out there that they can put anything they want online and not be accountable. It's anonymous. So that's oftentimes getting into and also besmirching somebody's reputation on top of it. So the parents really do need to stay on top of it. And sometimes they just can't. So they need to talk to friends. They need to follow them. They need to be snoopy. They need to go through their things. They just do.
Yeah.
It's a time period where, one of the people that's kind of on the front line of this, they work with these girls, Ann's House, and which is long-term residential care for trafficked girls. He said that in his day, he could make a mistake and live. He says, in these days, make a mistake and die.
Right.
So once you get in that car, once you say yes, once you go to that party,
Right, right.
It could be your last one.
Yeah. So, do you have a hotline number if anyone is caught in trafficking that they
Yeah, there's a national trafficking hotline number that it's a 1-888, and it's 24 hours. It's anonymous, and I actually know people in Chicago who answer those calls and then go out on those calls. They're the best people in the planet. They are magnificent, and they make a difference, and they care. So it's well worth calling, and you do not have to say who you are.
Okay.
Completely anonymous.
Okay.
So but it's the National Human Trafficking Hotline.
It's just I've been reading on Up for Sale and also Breaking Free. I've been reading. Well, I read this like in an hour. Breaking Free is a book about the third world countries, Cambodia, where it's a story of 3 young ladies who family sold them into prostitution. And
the year's salary.
Yeah, it was, and it's just shocking. And one lady's from Illinois, that she moved here, and they all, even though they escaped the bonds of human trafficking, they started organizations to save others from it, to educate them. So it's instead of being on the computer playing solitaire, go over to human trafficking and educate and find out what you can do to help save the lives of so many. I mean, we have to work harder and smarter, because human trafficking is almost a bigger business than the gun sales.
It's third illegal business. Human trafficking is the third largest illegal business in the world. It's right almost close to weapons now, which is second, and drugs are first. So it's just exploded all over the place, and that includes labor and sex trafficking, both combined. $32 billion business.
$32
billion.
So as registered voters, we can come together and have forums and take our concerns to Springfield, make it a serious situation for our elected officials, our state senators, our congressmen, our state representatives to stand and address these issues.
Yes. I will say Illinois is a leading component in the United States, and one of the states that's really making a difference. We're actually a role model for this, and it's because of many of those congresspeople that have stepped forward and advocates that have worked with the legislature to make good things happen. So people have made a difference here, which is remarkable and fabulous, but there's so much more to be done.
Give us the information on the play again, and I plan to be there.
Yay! It's Money Make 'em Smile. It's for 7th through 12th graders and adults. You know, it's an informative, it's a beautiful piece of art. It's going to be at the Greenhouse Theater, which is 2257 North Lincoln Avenue. It opens February 11th at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's all matinees, and it runs through March 10th. And on Saturdays, we have the workshops for educators in the afternoon with free lunch. And then you'll also be given the curriculum and the study guide as well.
And do you have a contact information you'd like to share?
If you go to herstorytheater.org and just fill in the blanks, the form is there. You just click on, and it's right there for you to download or fill in, even online, and then send it to us. And then we look at your dates. We get back to you and tell you, yeah, that's going to work. You have a first and second choice of dates, and we hope to see you there because you need to be there.
And it's also sponsored and supported by the Chicago Teachers Union.
Chicago Teachers Union, the Oppenheimer Family Foundation, the Sunlight Project with the Fourth Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
So God bless them. And even the Greenhouse is a partner of ours, too. It's really helped us out in making this event occur.
Well, I want to thank you, Mary Bonnet, for being here on In the Know with Mo. And I also want to thank Reverend Harold Bailey for having the vision to be proactive, to be a person to help us to expose human trafficking to you, our visitors, our viewing audience. So I want to thank both of them.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
That the play is dedicated to Desiree Robinson in her memory.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so this has been Maureen Forte of In the Know with Mo, and talking to you about human trafficking. It's up to us, all of us, the village, to save lives, to save the world. We have to do our part. I'm doing mine. What are you doing to do yours? Thank you.
Today, if you saw somebody chained to a post, you would do something about it. But in the days of the transatlantic slave trade, it was a normal sight to see. It isn't as clear today of what modern slavery looks like, but by knowing the signs of human trafficking, you can help protect yourself and you can help protect others. Traffickers would often brand their victims with tattoos, using words such as daddy or cash. Trafficking victims may show sudden changes of dress and behavior. They may suddenly have possessions that they usually can't afford. They may have unusually long work hours. Victims may have new relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends that are noticeably older, and I'm not talking about a few years. Difficulty with making eye contact, especially with men. Victims may have untreated medical problems, such as cuts, bruises, burns, broken bones. They may miss school frequently, make frequent trips. Victims may be unable to speak independently. Other people may insist on answering questions for them, or even translating for them. Victims may even be frightened of authorities, seeing them as the bad guys. To request help or report possible human trafficking incidents, please call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-3737-888, or text info or help at BeFree 233-733.